Yes, it is the Chad Benson Show. Chad's out today. Oh, there we go. Hang on. I got to listen to this. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is what makes it a party right here. Oh, my goodness, my goodness, my goodness. If you hear this song, you know that Dez is on the radio with you. You're not going to hear, Clay and Buck playing this. They'll spill their Crockett coffee if they try. No, I love Clay and Buck. I'm not hating. All right. So, again, remember, Freak Out Friday in the third hour. Get ready. We're rolling into hour number 2 right now. Yeah, I want to say something quick about this whole CDC walkout thing. Man, I hope they all walk out. Every single one. And once they do, change the locks so they can't get back in. Because the CDC is messed up, and it's the problem. It's not the solution. So that's my 2 cents about that. Can I get an amen? All right. So, to prepare, there's a thing called show prep in radio. And I actually learned it listening to Maharishi, listening to Rush Limbaugh for so many years on radio. He talked about the extensiveness of his show prep. And it's true. It's the real deal. You got to be prepared. So I will spend, for a 3-hour show, I'll spend, 6, 7, 8 hours preparing and put together, a script that's extensive. I mean, I don't read it like it's like I'm some kind of, call center or something, but it's important. So when I started working on this earlier in the week, the shooting in Minneapolis happened. And at the time, because it was new, there were things that I ended up kind of preparing to talk about that, people have talked about since, but it's one of those, breaking news things. It's like a porterhouse steak. There's so much meat on the bone, you can just keep going at it. So we're going to talk about that. It's time to say it out loud. Trans terrorism is the new existential threat. It's not, moms going to school board meetings. It's not Catholics. It's none of that stuff. In fact, it's the Catholics that are under attack. Trans terrorism. That's the greatest threat from within right now. Now, the brain-dead buffoons in the Paleozoic media won't say it. But the propagation of the trans religion is killing people. People are dying. And I'm not talking about the trans kids that they told us we were sentencing to sure suicide if we didn't give them gender-affirming care. But I'm talking about the Christian school kids being gunned down by armed trans psychotics. I'm talking about the demented, gender dysphoria-riddled, insane people whose psychopathy is nurtured, encouraged, and applauded by the cohort that are fed by the schools and the media, both social and traditional, and being convinced of their entitlement. They're entitled to, be what they think they are. See, clear thinkers are not the problem. If you watch CNN, if you watch ABC and NBC, period, see, they're going to say that you're the problem. Clear thinkers are the problem. But no, the media, academia, and the medical maniacs who insist you support their insanity, they're the problem. That's the problem. They're the villains. See, we were told that if we did not support and participate in the cohort's gender agenda, that we'd be responsible for millions of trans kids taking their own lives. Nonsense. No, the threat is trans kids increasingly killing your kids, our grandkids, our kids. The idea that you can Cuisinart already unstable people's minds with dissociative ideologies and affirm the madness further in academia and healthcare, media, entertainment, and politics, that you can mutilate their bodies and pump them full of a cocktail of antipsychotics and hormones and not create monsters. That's insane. So these woke constituencies are responsible for the weaponization of evil in the form of trans-twisted human hosts like vampires. The Covenant and the Minneapolis trans murderers are only the most notorious and widely known. The actual known number is 56. There are, and counting, there are at least 56 trans murderers and counting already. It's increased 93% in the last 4 years. Wait, what happened in the last 4 years? Oh, yeah, the emergence of the whole trans agenda. Now, the brain-dead buffoons, the talking heads, they're not going to tell you that. They're going to continue to parrot the narrative that what we all need to do is get on board with gender-affirming care and mutilations, more mutilations. So as a result, good people have been cowed into silence by the cacophony of lies propagated by the cohort. And if you're not supportive of the trans cause, then you're heartless and unloving, and you're the bad guy. But here's the thing, good people, clear thinkers, continued silence is complicity. The left isn't going to suddenly love and accept you because of your acquiescence. No, they're going to continue to hate and vilify and blame you because that's who they are. So it's time to stand up, speak up, rise up. It's time to put financial pressure on the stock prices of corrupt media. It's time to crush your political leaders, flood their phone lines, your elected officials, until they get on the right side of the issue. Flood social media. I'm sick of it. And every clear thinker should be sick of it too. So, lest anyone get this twisted, let me tell you what I'm not saying. This isn't about hating trans people. It's actually about loving them enough to tell them the truth and to prioritize sanity over ideology. Clear thinkers are the actual compassionate ones because we emphasize reality and teach others to do the same. The false narrative is, well, we'll just affirm the gender confused and confuse them more. And it will reflect how wonderful we are. Let's signal some more virtue with this thing. But if we're going to actually help the confused, the mentally ill, and frankly, straight up identify the evil, then we need to love them enough to tell them the truth. The left's dissociative lies are the stuff of unreality. Clear thinkers aren't the problem, they're the solution. If people would have loved the trans murderers enough to nurture them in the truth, the shooters and the kids they murdered would all still be alive. So, we need to fight trans religion like we fought the Nazis in World War II, like we would fight Hamas if they were in our own backyard, like we would fight the zombies on The Walking Dead. Because trans religion is killing people, and we need to end it. Now, I'm going to read some of an article, and I think I can fit it in here before we arrive at time for the break. Well, I got a problem with I got ED with my with my mount. There we go. Okay, so this is from a blog called Scallywag and Vagabond. I've never heard of it before, but I came across it because here's the deal. I tried Googling. I made the mistake. I usually don't use Google because it's a trash search engine. It's a propaganda machine masquerading as a search engine. So I'm telling you right now, if you go on Google or any of the other usual suspects and you try to put in some search terms and find some good and accurate information on this particular tragedy in Minneapolis or anything else where what you require is sound information, you're not going to find it. And, there are other search engines, and you need to find one that actually gives good and honest results. It was almost just for grins that I went on Google with this thing because I was 10 pages into search results and still didn't find anything. I had to go directly to sources like, the New York Post and the Blaze and others, because all that came up was not only biased information, not only, guns are bad, thoughts and prayers aren't going to do us any good stuff. I'm talking about there were like sites and sources that came up that I've never heard of that were all like pro-trans and so far left that they were off the screen. That's what was on Google. There's a site called Them that I never heard of in my life that came up over and over and over again. And it was nothing but pro-trans propaganda. That's all it was. So, again, as a little aside, be careful. Who you listen to is important. Where you get your information matters. And, beware of search engine propaganda. But, I think what I'm going to do, rather than get into this and have to rush through it, I'm going to hold off on digging into this this article because it's really good. I mean, I literally spent hours trying to find, okay, now here's something that's substantive and accurate. It took hours to find it. So I don't want to have to rush through it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to the break now. I'm going to go a little early so that I can come back to this after the break and spend some time with it. It's Des Dickerson with you, in for Chad Benson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Happy to be back with you again. Thank you for letting me be myself. We'll be back in a minute. Oh, crank that up, Bill. Crank that up. There's a band called Nothing More. If you don't know them, you got to know them. I love this band. Intelligent and loud. What's not to love? All right. So, a grass fire? Really?
That's what they say.
A grass fire.
Grass fire over there at the Eastern Split.
Next, there's going to be a zombie outbreak. We have a zombie outbreak on 24.
We don't need that. That'll make the roads slick.
Yes. Because you got to blow their heads up. Everybody knows. Now, sometimes it's like, well, I'm glad I'm in here.
Yeah.
Safe and sound. But at any rate, thank you, Brother Ken, as always, keeping us informed. Sometimes scaring the crap out of us, but keeping us informed. So, we're talking about, it's time to say it out loud. It's time to say it out loud. Trans terrorism is the new and actual existential threat. That's it. And they're not going to talk about it on the news. They're not going to call it what it is. It's been several days now. Have you heard anybody on ABC and NBCBS yet talk about what it really is? Old Jen, pass me the sake, got on air. They hadn't even driven the kids to the morgue yet. And she's on her hobby horse, about the guns, and she's on her hobby horse about, how it's past time for thoughts and prayers. And let me say this, the Christian hatred is fully out of the closet now. Christian hatred. And it's what has fueled almost all of the trans murders and the trans attacks. It's an open hatred of Christians and Christianity. And I'm going to be getting into it in a minute. And again, I'm probably going to stretch this out until past the next break again, just so I can dig into this article. But this kid who perpetrated this latest atrocity, his hatred of Christianity was like virulent and open. He had things etched into and written on, bullets and firearms. I mean, I guess he had some explosives prepared too that he didn't get a chance to utilize. But I mean, like the Covenant shooter, it was the fatal cocktail of trans psychosis and Christian hatred that fueled it. It's not a coincidence that both of them were, former Christian school attendees, specifically with the latest Catholic school. And I'm not hating on Catholics. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But again, they're not going to talk about this in any mainstream or quasi-mainstream media outlet. They're just not, because they have to stick with the narrative. They have to stick with the party line. They have to keep somehow finding a way to loop it back and blame it on MAGA and Donald Trump, because that's who they are. That's their psychosis. That's their sociopathy. So again, clear thinkers, I say it all the time. I'm going to say it again. Jesus said, be careful what you hear, be careful how you hear. What and who you listen to is important, because we can say all we want. Well, I know the truth. Well, and I know you do. But that stuff, that brain rot, that woke mind virus seeps in, and it pollutes you if you're not careful. So understand this latest new atrocity, this latest shooting, it's nothing new, and we need to recognize that if we don't stand up and fight, not only is it going to keep happening, but it's going to get worse. And the apparatchiks in politics, in Congress, in the media, they're going to keep trying to get you to, they're going to keep trying to emperor's new clothes you and get you to think it's something else. If they say anything about it at all. So, I'm counting on you. Clear thinkers, I'm counting on you. Time to stand up. Don't be quiet anymore. Don't be afraid of what they're going to say about you. Don't be afraid of the conversation at Thanksgiving or at the picnic, because this is serious. This thing, people are dying. Trans psychotic mind rot is killing people. So we're going to take another break. I'm going to get to this article when we come back. Des Dickerson with you again here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. In for Chad Benson. We will be right back. Don't you go away. And we're back. Oh, man. I'm having a good time today. I don't know about you, but I'm enjoying myself. So, before we get back into, yes, I am finally going to get to share this article with you. But I want to remind you, it's Freak Out Friday. And in the third hour, which is coming up, it's rapidly approaching. You need to call in. You better get us on speed dial right now. You need to call in because you need to share your freak out with WTN Nation. So remember, it's real simple. You call in, you share with us on the air. What is it that freaks you out? Now, I end up sharing this every time, but it's a great example. It's a great object lesson in a good freak out. My younger brother, Darren, I'm the oldest of three siblings. And, at this point, he's 7 years younger than me. So at our age, younger and older is really irrelevant. It doesn't matter anymore. But my brother had this fear of Jell-O that extended into adulthood. Started when he was a kid. So being the tormentor in chief that I was, anytime we had Jell-O, especially like, Thanksgiving and Christmas, my mom would make that salad, that green Jell-O salad. You know what I'm talking about. So I'd fill up a plate of it. I'd sneak up on him and I'd put it in front of his face and shake it. Something about Jell-O moving just completely unnerved him. So what is your freak out? Get your story straight. Get ready to call in. Because I'm expecting you to fill these phone lines. Don't you leave me hanging. Freak Out Friday on WTN. The other thing I want to remind you of is you need to go to the Des Dickerson is Based Facebook page. You need to follow. You need to like. We're using it as a staging area for the upcoming Des Dickerson is Based podcast, which will be launching soon and coming soon to a laptop or smartphone near you. But, we're getting our people together, getting our crowd together on Facebook first. So not only do I want you to go to the Facebook page, but tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your mama and them, but send them as well. Des Dickerson is Based. We need to see you there. And that way also, that's where you can get updates, sometimes infrequent, but updates as to the progress on the podcast and when it's coming. And I know, it's like, oh yeah, that's just what we need, another podcast. Well, we need this one. There are 900,000 podcasts in America. I'm not talking about globally. But you know what? Let's just be real. 98% of them are trash. But if you enjoy what I'm bringing you here on Super Talk 99.7, there'll be more of it on Des Dickerson is Based. And we get the opportunity to be more expansive. Because of the fact that, one of the things people love about the podcast space is that, there's just, room to bloviate and pontificate. And now, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to do the Joe Rogan thing and do 3.5 hours. And I'm not always going to have guests. I'm going to do what I do on radio. But the plan, I might as well go into the format. The plan is, first hour of the podcast, I'm going to do, kind of what I do on radio and mess with your minds. Second hour of the podcast is when, I'll bring other people on and we'll have interesting guests, not the usual suspects. But we're going to, we're going to try to go boldly where no man has gone before and make podcasting great again. So Des Dickerson is Based. Go to the Facebook page now. And that'll get you ready, get you, in the chow line to be able to make the move to the podcast when we start it. All right. So I want to finally get to this article. And like I said, it took a while to find something. In, that first day or two, it was like, a vast wasteland in search land. So the title is Minneapolis Catholic School Shooter ID'd as transgender male who revered other mass shooters. Robin Westman, transgender male ID'd as the Minneapolis Annunciation Catholic School shooting suspect. And of course, everybody knows that now. This is from a couple days ago. That killed 2 young kids and injured, this says 17, but we know now that it's 18, including 14 children as they prayed during their return to school mass in Minneapolis. And, many of you know, I'm from the Twin Cities. I'm from the St. Paul side of the river, but, it's one big town. That's my hometown. The shooter here's the thing, shooter had no prior criminal history. That whole idea of, we're tracking their criminal activity. You know what? In these things, these folks get cranked up and wound up and drugged up. And usually, there is no prior history. There's just an explosion of death and carnage. Now there are signs, and people aren't catching the signs a lot of times, but it goes on to say 2 children have been killed after a gunman opened fire on a Catholic church in Minneapolis as the parish school was holding its start-of-year mass Wednesday morning at about 8:15 a.m. Another 14 children were injured, and again, we know it's now 18 children, along with 3 adults. The slain children, aged 8 and 10, were shot dead as they sat in packed pews during morning service at Annunciation Catholic Church. Now, the Annunciation shooter, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but he confessed being tired of being trans and having brainwashed himself. So this is just, one little soundbite of the insanity. He lived with his parents, who signed off on his gender change. And my understanding is it was primarily his mom. The shooter, again, Robin Westman, 23 years old, a biological male transgender living as a woman who was formerly known as Robert, so it's the mass murderer formerly known as, was dressed in all black and armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. He fired off a barrage of bullets through the church's stained glass windows as congregants, mostly children, prayed. After the gunman, having barricaded the doors, blocking them from escaping, fired up to 50 to 100 rounds, police said. 17 people, again, we know 18 now, including 14 children, were injured during the deliberate act of violence, the police chief of Minneapolis confirmed. Police Chief Brian O'Hara. O'Hara said the coward who fired these shots ultimately took his own life in the rear of the church. That's it. That's a common outcome, too. They kill everybody else and they kill themselves. Of the 18 injured, 2 children were in critical condition, O'Hara said during a press conference the other day. Of note, all 3 weapons used during according to the police, were purchased legally. And recently, that was reported by the Daily Mail. A yearbook obtained by CNN showed Westman, who was previously known as Robert, graduated from Annunciation Catholic grade school in 2017. The shooting happened during a celebratory mass, making a return to classes after summer break. Gunman fired, as we know, through the stained glass windows of the Catholic Church. The shooter fired dozens of rounds from outside the church, it wasn't even inside the building, and shot from all 3 weapons. Now, the police are investigating whether a 20-minute YouTube video shared on his account hours before the shooting, was connected to Westman. In the video, a hand slowly turns the pages of a red notebook, which is laid out on top of what appears to be schematic gun diagrams. Each page is filled with inscrutable handwritten scrawl. It's one of the chief identifiers of psychopathy. An occasional plume of smoke is seen from the bottom of the screen as the person turning the pages coughs and occasionally maniacally giggles. Other videos show an obsession with mass shooters, including Sandy Hook killer Adam Lanza, who killed 26 people, including 20 children between the ages of 6 and 7 years old. On May 23rd, 2025, Westman wrote in his journal, "I have a deep fascination with one man in particular, Adam Lanza." Gun parts shared on video had the names of other mass shooters written on them. Lanza, the Norway shooter Anders Behring Breivik, and the Abundant Life shooter Natalie Repnow. Videos posted on YouTube show multiple weapons, including a semi-automatic rifle, shotgun, magazines, scrawled with the words, "For the children," and "Kill Donald Trump." A since-deleted YouTube account under the username Robin W. posted numerous videos in the hours leading up to the shooting. In one video, the user showed off weaponry and gear that had writings on it, including the phrases, "Where is your God?" "Kill Donald Trump," and "I'm the woker, baby. Why so serious?" Other phrases included "Burn Israel" and 6 million was not enough. In the same video, the user showed a target that had Jesus on it with the words, "He came to pay a debt he didn't owe because we owe a debt we cannot pay," typed underneath Jesus. Catholic school kid. The suspect's vehicle, which he parked inside the church lot, was being searched at the time. They found fireworks, et cetera, et cetera. So here's my point. With all the things that were written, I also understand that he went to a shooting range and altered, one of the figures that you used to shoot at, and put Jesus' face in the place of the face that should have been there. I mean, again, anti-Christian hatred mixed with psychopathy and the cocktail of antipsychotics and hormones that they pump young people full of in pursuit of gender-affirming care. This isn't an accident, people. This stuff is preventable. So, again, it's time. It's time for us to say it out loud. It's time for us to stand up and do what we have to do in the townhouse and city hall, everywhere, because they're killing our kids, and we have to stop it. We're going to have to stop it. CNN's not going to stop it. Politicians aren't going to stop it. We have to do that. We have to be the force in the community. You got to be the voice in your schools. Get armed security guards and resource officers in your schools, people. Good guys with guns. Stop crazy people with guns. All right. Des Dickerson, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We're heading we're fixing to go into Freak Out Friday. So get ready. We'll be back. Now, you got to turn that up. Corn, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Now, see, I've had like 2, neck fusion surgeries. So my head banging days are over. I have to bob my whole upper body.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, you better be careful there, Brother Dez.
Yeah, I can't do that. But if you can hear that song and your head stays still, something is not right. Something's just not right. I'm just saying. So here's what we're going to do. We got a couple minutes before the top of the hour. Brother Ken and I were talking a little bit before I went on air about football. Because it's that time of year. And football for me, it's family, Jesus, and football. That's it. That's it. That's where I'm coming from. So we were talking a bit. He was asking me, what I thought about the prospects of my team, the Minnesota Vikings. Skull. So here's the thing, and I've been saying this since the draft last year. I don't trust J.J. McCarthy. I just, he was on a national championship team, and he's a leader. All he did was hand the ball off. He threw the ball like 8 times. I watch, as I've said before, I watched the combine and all of that stuff. He looked like trash, in my opinion. So, the story out of camp, which it's going to be, is, he's looking great and he's going to be great. And, we'll see. I just hope he's serviceable, because everything right now kind of hinges on, is J.J. McCarthy live or Memorex? And the rest of the team, they finally fixed the O-line. They've done some things to shore up, get some youth, some more prime beef on the defensive line. We're thin at cornerback. I'm concerned about that. The team, Kevin O'Connell is a genius offensively. Offense will be fine, especially after we get, what's my man's name back? The kid from USC. Especially after we get him back, we got Justin Jefferson. We'll be fine. The issue is going to be J.J. McCarthy. That's all I got to say. I know, Titans, you're excited about, the new quarterback, and we'll see. As far as I'm concerned, every rookie quarterback is a work in progress. And until we get to the end of year 2, we'll see. We don't know. But at any rate, Super Talk 99.7 WTN, we're coming up on Freak Out Friday. And you better call in. I'm not going to have any slacking today. You got to call in. You got to participate in Freak Out Friday. You got to share your freak outs with us so we can make the third hour the biggest part of the party today. Des Dickerson with you in for Chad Benson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And we'll be back with Freak Out Friday in a minute.